If you live in the Quad Cities and you're on Medicare, you're gonna need to understand the difference between a Medigap supplement plan and a Medicare Advantage plan. So there's gonna be a lot of changes to Medicare in 2025. So I wanna make sure you understand the differences between these options. And stick around towards the end, there will be another third option that a lot of people don't really know about. So step number one, when you turn 65, you're eligible to enroll in Medicare. So the first step is getting original Medicare, which I like to signify by the red, white, and blue card up in the right corner. And then step number two is to fill the gaps, because as we know, original Medicare is only essential coverage, not complete coverage. So original Medicare has two parts. Part A, which is hospital insurance. This is if you go to a hospital and get like an outpatient or inpatient procedure. And then there's Part B, which is medical insurance, which is mainly for doctors and lab work and things outside of a hospital setting. There's normally three ways that we pay for insurance. There's deductibles, which is the amount that you would cover before the insurance kicks in. There's premiums, which is kind of a monthly amount that you pay in order to keep your plan active. I like to think of this kind of like a subscription. And then co-insurance or co-payments, which is basically cost sharing. They pay some, you pay some. So for Part A, now these numbers change slightly year to year. We think we know what they are for 2025 at this point. Should be $1,632 deductible for hospital. And then there's no premium for Part A. Now Part B, there's about a $257 deductible, and then everybody will pay about $185 a month for Part B. Now these numbers are okay, but the main problem with original Medicare is that 20% of everything with no cap comes down to you. So if you got $1 million bill, let's say you had a catastrophe, you fell, you had an ambulance ride, multiple surgeries, spent many days in the hospital, and you get $1 million in bills, you would be stuck with 200,000 of it, which would break most people financially. That's where number two, filling the gaps, comes in play. So there's three main ways to fill the gaps. The first common way is a Medigap plan. The second common way is an Advantage plan. And then a third, less known way is something I call the Advantage Plus. So a Medigap plan, you would get a standardized plan, which is characterized by a letter. Let's say a plan G, which is usually the most common. You would add about $150 a month in premiums. And what this would do is eliminate this Part A deductible and this 20% co-insurance. The only thing it wouldn't take care of would be this deductible, and then everybody's going to pay that Part B premium no matter what. So we'll bring down that deductible because you will be responsible for that. Now this plan G, this Medigap plan, doesn't include drug coverage. So you also need to get a drug plan. Even if you don't take prescriptions, you need to get one, because if you don't have a drug plan, later when you sign up for it, you'll be penalized for it. The average drug plan in 2025 will be about $50 a month, and the average deductible is somewhere around $400 deductible. So now, when people ask about dental, vision, hearing, and some other benefits they've heard about, like over-the-counter credits, maybe a gym membership, none of these are included with the Medigap route. So because you'll need checkups and like routine hearing exam, routine dental exam, plus maybe the occasional dental surgery, I like to estimate about $1,000 a year for these expenses, give or take, year by year. Overall, when you add up the premiums and deductibles on this route, you're probably between $3,500 to even $6,000 per year. And because it's paid in premiums and deductibles, this is what you're going to pay whether you went to the doctor one time or 1,000 times. You don't pay when you go to the doctor, you pay every month for those premiums. Now, contrast that with an Advantage plan. Before I dive into what an Advantage plan usually looks like, here's how it works. So, over your entire working life, you've paid into Medicare through your taxes, whether you wanted to or not. So the government will set aside a little pile of money to later on facilitate your care when you're on Medicare. So private insurance companies can actually go to the government and say, if you give us this money, then we will make a plan that our members like that earn us a small 1 to 3% profit over time. So what that usually looks like is a premium of $0 per month and a deductible of $0. Means you're not paying for it every month and it'll kick in right away, so you don't have to cover a certain amount first. But they will outline co-payments. So some of those co-pays will look like this. A primary care physician, so your primary doctor, a $0 copay. But a specialist, if you see a cardiologist, a urologist, that might be $45. If you have an outpatient surgery where you don't stay overnight, that might be, let's say, $350. Inpatient surgery, maybe $350 per day, days 1 through 5, and then 0 after that. Let's say physical therapy might be $30 per day. Skilled nursing facility might be $0 per day for the first 3 weeks, and then $200 a day after that. So the next logical question is, okay, what if I have a really, really bad year and these copays just keep adding up? So all Advantage plans have a max out of pocket, which I like to call the copay ceiling. If you're among the 2 to 7% of people who actually reach this number, you would stop paying the copays altogether, but you would still get the services you need. This max out of pocket for many plans in the Quad City area will be between $4,000 and $5,000. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. Now, drug is included in most of these plans. So that means you'll still pay for the co-pays of your drugs as you get them, but there isn't usually an extra premium. And then finally, extra benefits like dental, vision, hearing, over-the-counter, gym membership, and so on are bundled into the plan. So for dental, you usually have 2 free check-ins, cleaning with the cleanings, the fluoride, the x-rays, and then they'll give you usually anywhere between $1,000 to $3,000 towards dental surgery. This can be root canals, crowns, bridges, even dentures. Vision, they'll give you 1 free routine eye exam plus a few $100s towards your glasses or lenses. And then for hearing, they'll give you 1 free hearing exam plus money towards hearing aids. Over-the-counter benefits, something like $35 a quarter, and then they'll usually have a free gym membership with silver sneakers or something similar. At this point, there are usually 2 types of people. The people who are really sure that they know and like Medigap plans, but they're curious about an Advantage plan. They see the 0 premium and they see the extra benefits like the dental, vision, hearing. They want to know what it's all about. And there's also people who see some of these larger copays, like the 350s or 400s, and it's a little bit scary to them because they don't have a few $1,000s saved up that they can spend on these expenses. So the third option kind of molds the 2, supplement and Advantage, where you can have a lower premium, but you can also really kind of eliminate those copays to an extent. This final and third option, we're going to take this exact same Advantage plan, bring it over, and then we're going to add something called an indemnity plan. So what this can do is, let's say we're afraid of outpatient surgery. That copay seems a little large to us. So instead of the outpatient surgery being $300, we can bring that down to $0. Instead of inpatient being $300 per day, we can bring that to $0 per day. Instead of PT being $30 per day, we can bring that to $0 per day. Instead of skilled nursing being $200 per day, we can effectively bring that to $0 a day. If cancer runs in your family and you're afraid of a cancer diagnosis, you can get a $2,500 to a $20,000 payout if you're diagnosed with cancer. And in order to hedge all of these larger copays, this premium, instead of $0, would be more like $50 to $130, depending on how extensive you want this indemnity plan to be. Let me be clear that this Advantage Plus isn't a specific type of Advantage plan. It's just the regular Advantage plans that are offered by these companies, and then you're adding an extra indemnity plan. This indemnity plan doesn't immediately just eliminate the copays. It'll actually pay you some dollar amount, which you can then use to cover these copays. So now I'm going to summarize these options, what you can expect to pay with each one, the Medigap, the Advantage plan, and the Advantage Plus indemnity. With the Medigap plan, the way it's structured is that you will pay, let's say, something around $4,000. And again, that's no matter whether you go to the doctor once or 1,000 times, you're paying in premiums and deductibles. With an Advantage plan, the company will set a max out of pocket. Let's say their max out of pocket is $4,500. Your potential savings here, if you had a really, really good year and you didn't use any doctor services or medical services, then you could save about $4,000. However, every time you go and see a specialist, you throw $45 in. Let's say you have an outpatient surgery. You throw $350 in. You have another specialist visit, another $45. So you see how you kind of save the money in premiums and deductibles, but when you go to the doctor and seek those services, you'll pay some copays. Now finally, with the Advantage Plus route, you will pay a certain amount in premiums, let's say $1,000 in premiums that year. So that will be out of your pocket. But what that will do is decrease the likelihood that you would get anywhere near that max. So let's say you have this same Advantage plan and your max is still $4,500. The odds that you actually would reach that $4,500 are way slimmer, just because most of those larger copays are now eliminated. So one final note here is a lot of people question networks when it comes to Advantage plans. So I'm going to give you just a brief lesson on the different networks. There's two main types. There's an HMO and a PPO. With an HMO, you can go anywhere in network, and they don't let you go out of network unless you get a prior authorization from your doctor who is in network. Now with a PPO, you can go in and out of network freely, but they'll incentivize you to stay in network in some way because it'll cost a little more money if you go out of network. So a few things to note here are usually HMOs will have slightly better benefits. Anywhere in the country, whether it's in network or out of network, anything that's urgent or emergency is billed as if it was in network. That's a Medicare CMS law. And then prior authorization usually isn't that bad. Sometimes, depending on the company, they'll try to find a doctor who can do the same specialty in network, but if your primary care doctor in network really needs you to see a specific person, prior authorization isn't as scary of a process as people think it is. Now with a PPO, they'll usually have slightly higher copays, and then maybe less dental, vision, hearing, but it gives you an extra layer of protection. Just in case you travel a lot or may want to see specialists in different states or something like that. I hope this overview has been helpful. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about Medigap and Advantage plans. I'm an insurance broker at Midwest Insurance Group. We, over the years, have helped 10 to 20,000 clients in the Quad Cities find the perfect Medicare plan. There's going to be a lot of changes to Medicare in 2025. So it's in your best interest to review your plan and just make sure that you're not going to get hit with big bills in January or February. There's a lot of stuff that's tightening up with the drug situation, and premiums are rising too. So if you want to speak with me, Braden Mosley, or any other broker that we have at MIG, go ahead and click the button below and we will have a broker reach out to you as soon as possible. Walk-ins are always welcome at any of our 3 Quad City locations, but appointments are very preferred just because we get really busy this time of year.